welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben, and in today's video we'll be looking at a review for To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. The story is about Ru Ying, and she has the ability, she comes from a society with magic. They're being invaded by another world called Rome that's very high in technology. So it's this very clear-cut magic versus technology story. She has to enter into this agreement with a Roman prince that he will provide her with protection and her family with protection if she basically becomes his assassin, because she has the ability, her magic is the ability to pull the chi out of someone's body, to pull the life force out of their body. And every time she does it, it takes a little bit of something away from her. It takes a little of her own life away. And this erosion of her own life and her own chi is mirrored in the erosion of her morality, the erosion of her scruples, of her beliefs. After I finished this book, I texted my wife saying I thought it was pretty good and that I would probably pick up the sequel book to see where it was going. And then I went on Goodreads. And the Goodreads page for this particular book is just a hotbed of controversy right now. There seems to be a great divide between people who love the book and are giving it 4 or 5 stars and people who hate it, who are giving it 1-star reviews and 2-star reviews. There are some accusations of review bombing it, review boosting it. I do want to give some warnings, give some heads up about some of the other things I've seen. I am a cis white male. I am not of Asian descent. I don't know the intricacies, the backstory of the things that this is drawing inspiration from. It may very well be that some of these lower ratings are legitimate grievances and that they are truly upset about some of the things that are happening in this book. I think it's an interesting case study in authorial intent versus reader interpretation. The big thing that is a sticking point for a number of the very low ratings on Goodreads is that the main character in this story, Ru Ying, ends up romantically attracted to, or physically attracted to, her oppressor. Someone who is literally colonizing her people, who's literally experimenting on them, and that is deeply problematic for a number of readers who felt like this was advertised as a enemies to lovers story. One review even said they wouldn't mind it as much if it were advertised or if it were presented as a toxic love. As far as I can tell from looking at Molly Chang's social media posts, it seems like it was never the intention to present it as either a young adult book and never the intention of saying that it was an enemies to lovers story. She describes it as a love with a villain in some cases. She's always talked about how it is meant to be adult fantasy, and it is listed as such on the publisher's website, which does have a demarcation for young adult. So they have a tag for YA. They're not using it for this one. If you are going into it interpreting this as a YA book or interpreting it as meaning to be a love story that you take seriously, in the sense that you think that the two are going to ultimately get together, I would find that a big problem. That would be deeply problematic. However, the relationship in here is actually one of the things I really like about the book. The summary of the book makes this relationship and its problems very clear. It talks about how she has to go into this deal with this prince to save her family. It talks about how she is falling for him. Her heart is beating faster, I believe, is the imagery used in the description. And it also raises these questions like, oh, but can he be trusted? And honestly, I'm so tired of the answer to that question being yes, that it was actually refreshing seeing a relationship where the answer to that question, should she trust him, is absolutely not. That this is a horrible situation to be in, that she is making the wrong decisions, that she is doing terrible things, and doing them for the wrong reasons. The other major criticism levied against the book is with its prose and how it feels a little stilted. Even the Kirkus review ultimately said that it was ambitious but had stilted prose. They said that it's trying to go for a little bit too poetic of language, and perhaps in the hands of another author with a little more nuance, even the problematic relationship would maybe not be as big of a sticking point for some. So I think it's a combination here of relying a little bit too heavily on the emotions of the character. It's in a first-person perspective. We're getting Ru Ying's thoughts and feelings almost constantly. This exploration of her feelings is in lieu of more descriptions of her descent into this this mindset where she is justifying her actions, justifying the things that she does. If we could see her gradual descent into being subservient to the colonizers who have come to her world, that it would maybe be a little bit stronger of a narrative. A lot of that does happen over this really quick kind of hand-waving bit where they talk about, like several weeks later, several months later, she's now done X number of executions. At no point did I feel like this relationship was meant to be seen as a positive thing. Ru Ying starts off with very little in terms of outside connections. She has a sister who is addicted to a drug that's basically opium. Ru Ying talks about how she used to be so loving and so considerate, and now she snaps at her. She's very angry. She has an elderly grandmother who she has to take care of and who she's worried about constantly. She has one close friend that we meet, but other than that, she doesn't seem to have much in the way of like a social circle or a support system. Her childhood friend has now become someone who works for the Romans, so she feels betrayed there. She does not trust him. You take someone like that, you take someone who has very little in their life that is supporting them and nurturing them. She gets locked up for a while, and the prince is kind to her. He tells her that her talent is not a curse. It's a gift, that she is meant to be a god, that he trusts her, that he wants to do the right thing, that he has to make hard decisions for good reasons. He gradually isolates her and makes it to where he is the one thing that she has in her life that is supporting and encouraging and nurturing her. This is classic grooming behavior. And I feel like it was totally believable that she was falling in love with him, or at least felt like she was falling in love with him, that she, wanted to be with him, because it was a situation where she didn't have anywhere else really to go, and she wanted to believe that these things were possible. The thing that people are finding the most problematic with the book was actually the part that I was the most interested in, because it wasn't this clear-cut, oh, he's actually a good prince and he actually wants to do the right thing and he actually cares for her. And it's just this society that he's in that is, causing him to be this way. And as soon as he can, be in power, or as soon as they can escape and be together, then things will change. And he is doing these things because he wants power, because he wants to be in control, because he wants to save his world. Yes, there is that element to it, but wholly at the expense of Ru Ying's people. It takes a very long time for Ru Ying to come over to that way of thinking, right? To expose him for what he really is. There are still problems with the book. So let's talk about the one chapter that is from Antony, the prince's perspective. So we have one chapter, just a one-off, that is from Antony's perspective, and it insinuates that on some level he does really care about her. I could have done without that. I really wish that was not in there, because it does make it kind of gross, and I don't like it. Like, that's the one part where I was like, are we actually going for this is a relationship that's going to work out? Because that's not going to work. This only works, the storyline only works for me if she eventually comes around and realizes how toxic it is. So that's one issue. I do agree with some of the criticisms of the writing. I found that there were a lot of descriptions of relationships and the feeling of being distant from someone as a canyon being between the two of them. I think that was used 3 times within the book. Different descriptions of people like balling their fist, and she like carved half moons into her fingers from her fingernails as she really wrenched it up. Those bits of repetition I noticed. I did not find the writing to be transcendent. I didn't find it to be like the most amazing thing, but I didn't find it to be distractingly bad either. I just feel like it probably could have done a better job of making it clear that this was not ever meant to be a relationship that was going to work out, that we were supposed to interpret this as a very bad thing, and it's difficult to do that from that first person perspective. I'm going to have to discuss some spoilers for the end of the book, and I'm going to talk about the sequel book for a little bit. So if you don't want spoilers, just skip ahead to this time frame, and I should be moving on to my final thoughts then. Okay. Everyone gone? All right. So the end of the book sees Ru Ying discovering that childhood friend that had seemingly betrayed her was actually like a double agent, and he is the one who goes and shows her the experiments that Antony, the prince, had been doing on her people. And that's the thing that finally gets her to open her eyes and see what a terrible person she's being and what terrible choices she's made in the name of safety and comfort. By the end of the book, she is very squarely set against the prince that she has been fawning over for so long, for basically the entire runtime of the book. The second book is called To Kill a Monstrous Prince. Seems like we're going the route of now we're going to kill him. And this is probably, I have to imagine, given how on the nose this might be a little bit reactionary. The second book is explicitly being marketed as an anti-colonialist fantasy book. So I definitely think they're trying to get across the point that this was never the intention. I don't ever think it was meant to be a relationship that you looked at like, oh yeah, I want them to get together. I did not want them to get together. I wanted to see her descend into this place. I wanted to watch Ru Ying as she gradually lost a bit of her humanity, and then I wanted her to snap out of it and come back and realize what she had done wrong. And that's exactly what the book did for me. You have to decide for yourself whether or not the things I've described within this review are going to be problematic for you. I found them interesting because they were different because it pushed a character in a direction that I was not used to seeing. This wound up as a 3 out of 5 for me. I would read the sequel of this book over The Scarlet Alchemist. I did not like what The Scarlet Alchemist did at the end of the book to try to push for that sequel book. I'm much more invested in this one and seeing where it goes. I enjoyed the world building in here, as simple as it was. I liked the sense of the overwhelming odds against the protagonist and how it seemed like such a bleak world. I enjoyed the exploration of what would a person do to try to get the things that they want, and the gradual degradation of Ru Ying's morals and her ideals. I liked that exploration of kind of a darker relationship between the two, of the imbalance of power, and that going toward this idea of how far do you have to be pushed before you come back, before you realize that the road you've gone down is bad. Not all of our protagonists need to be good people. Not all of our protagonists need to be perfect and make perfect decisions. It's okay to have a character that is problematic and flawed. And I thought that this was a decent exploration of it. I would have liked some stronger writing. I feel like had it been a little bit more nuanced, people would probably have a lot less problems with it. And I feel like it relies a little bit too much on tropes you see within YA titles for romantasy. And because of that, it is kind of losing a bit of its identity. There's a disconnect between the author's vision of this book, what she views it as, and some of the public reaction, right? On Goodreads, this is listed as YA. Waterstones had a brief excerpt that describes it as YA. Everything from the publisher and from the author, nothing there says YA. And again, YA is a problematic genre because it's not a genre, it's a marketing technique. It's ultimately up to you to decide, do these things sound interesting? Does the setup sound interesting? The world sound interesting? I know I talked a lot about the relationship. It is like the center point of the book. You might have legitimate concerns about the way that the relationship in here is depicted, about a girl who is fawning over the person who is literally invading her homeland. But again, I don't think it's meant to be read that way. I hope you found this review informative. I hope that I was able to articulate not only my own feelings on the book, but also some of the controversy that seems to be surrounding it, give some context as to why I think that that's happening, point you to some resources where you can read for yourself if this is a good fit for you or not. So I will link down below the Goodreads page if you want to go look at some of those reviews that I've taken a look at. I'm also going to link a couple of reviews, like the Kirkus review, another review site that I found that generally falls around the same way that I did, where it was 3 stars. I'd probably read the sequel, and also a page that kind of talks about the controversy surrounding it and goes into it in a little bit more depth than I'm able to get into here. This was a weird one. This was one that I felt like I needed to talk about some of the other stuff going on around the book and not just the content of the book itself. So I hope that was okay. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, give me your thoughts. If you've read this book, if you were thinking about picking it up, did this controversy dissuade you from doing that? I've seen a lot of people saying they're going to drop it. Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I hope your reading journey is going well, whether you're reading YA, adult fantasy, toxic relationships, problematic books, or you're just, enjoying the latest volume of One Piece. Whatever you choose to do, I hope you are having a good time. And until the next one, take care.